why don't more women propose? This again is a very American thing, and a very modern, progressive, feminist thing that I'm totally against because I'm not a modern American feminist. But this entire article is quite long, so I'll quote from a few bits of it. But this is
oh my god, a woman actually did it. Rebecca Kendall.
Yeah. Well, Rebecca Kendall, a New York City public school teacher, used her February 2021 break to do something that few women ever get to do. She proposed to her boyfriend. None of this ever get to do.
Okay.
As if women are, oh, God,
if only
I could, yeah. She proposed to her boyfriend, an assistant principal at this different school, on a beach resort in Jamaica.
He sounds Middle Eastern, Bilig Bayar. So that probably went down like a lead balloon. On a beach resort in Jamaica.
Yeah, I got down on one knee, did the whole thing, she says. How do you feel about that? Just out of interest.
Horrifying. I think I would rather mop the sea. I saw this lady on okay, so I used to watch telenovelas a lot as a kid. And this was a lady who was in a telenovela that I watched as a kid. And she'd moved to Miami. And I never knew that she wasn't married. So I saw she got married and all of that. And then after the wedding, she posted a picture of her on one knee. And I'm like, did you fall? Like, what happened?
Yeah,
were you injured? It's like, no, he proposed to me and I proposed to him. Like, it was a mutual thing.
Right. Well, that's something similar.
I mean, it's hard. You have no self-respect. It's horrifying.
Yeah, I agree. Like, but it's not just horrifying. There is a purpose to marriage, and you are totally inverting that purpose.
Well, because they don't believe in the marriage as like I know this doesn't sound, I don't know, fashionable or trendy, but there's a reason why, even if you don't necessarily subscribe to the biblical version of marriage, there's a reason why there is the headship of a marriage or a relationship falls on the man, right? That's not to say that you're oppressed or whatever, but you cannot have two pilots. There has to be one pilot and one co-pilot. And I don't understand why we're trying to subvert everything that plays to the natural strengths of men and women.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? Like, there are particular roles that differentiate men and women.
Yeah.
And one very classic part of the role of the man is to be the one who proposes. Like, it's a scary thing to do, but it's also kind of not privilege, but it's something that's reserved for men.
Yeah.
It's and so it's something that a man has to work up to in his own head.
Because the thing is, it's an honor. And these women, I'd be very curious if this woman, I mean, she's probably the kind of person that would split the bill on the first date. So
Undoubtedly.
Undoubtedly.
Sorry to interrupt the video, but I thought I'd announce that we have a new line of merch. This is our aesthetics collection. So I was thinking that in the face of AI art debasing the very concept of art, actually we'd do something quite positive. So we commissioned a series of paintings that were actually really beautiful and could be something that we could present outside of politics. So, for example, we have this magnificent painting of a ship weathering a storm, which I thought was just really nice. And we have, of course, a glorious, sort of surrealist, giant white tiger drinking from a lake. But also there are other things that are just kind of interesting, such as the chap lost in cyberspace, or something that I thought might, in time for Christmas, make a great present to your mum or something like that. A beautiful cat lounging on some clouds. Basically, we wanted to do some stuff that wasn't just political. So things that were just nice and beautiful and interesting, because that's also a part of the world we want to curate. So you can go over to shop.lotuses.com. Buying the merch is a really great way of supporting us and means that we can live past demonetization. And I'm sure they make great gifts to the folks as well.
But I just think, why do you want to do everything? Why do you feel like you should be responsible for everything?
But again, it's why do you feel you have to try and be the man?
Yeah, exactly.
Trying to be the man in your relationship.
Get a dog.
Also, yeah, get a dog. But you're the woman. What's wrong with being the woman?
Maybe she doesn't know how to. I think that's probably a bigger issue. I think many Western women, like especially the later generations, not the younger generations, not the older generations that have spearheaded this nonsense. Yeah. I think it's the later generations. They're now thinking, actually, could I even be a woman if I wanted to?
Yeah.
Because they've grown up with these generations of women that are saying, oh, you don't need a man, or just get a job, prioritize your career, don't have children, all of that. And now they're at a point where even if they wanted to be women, they don't have any kind of knowledge of it.
Yeah, because the older women are free to say that because they were raised to know how to be women.
So they have the choice.
And they had the choice. They've broken that connection. And now women 40 years later have just got no idea.
They don't. They've been robbed of the choice because
Yeah,
I'm like, even if I don't know, for some reason you decide to do a 180-degree sort of turnaround and become that traditional woman,
Yeah.
can you do it? Can you manage a home? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I knew people that used to like boil milk in a kettle at university. Like they had no.
Why would you boil milk in a kettle?
Like no domestic skills whatsoever. I mean, at the point where you can barely nourish yourself, let alone a family. They've been robbed of the choice. That's the bigger issue. I'm like, if you can at least do that and still say, actually, I'm going to be a strong, independent woman, or I'm going to look for a particular kind of man, fine.
At least it was a choice.
But now it's sad.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. So she shared her plans to propose to her boyfriend beforehand, and they weren't actually big on it. She says, they didn't try to talk me out of it, but they definitely didn't have the reaction I would have liked. They were like, that's so you. Good for you.
That's not a compliment.
No, yeah, they were definitely like, right, okay, we don't want to insult her, but you shouldn't be doing that, you know. But anyway, they go on and tell us a bit more about how dating is in America at the moment, and it's not great. The process by which men and women
here either.
well, it's not great anywhere, but this is just an American-centric one. The process by which men and women meet, mate, and manufacture more humans is undergoing a radical realignment. And look how that's turning out. Half a century ago, 2/3 of Americans aged 25 to 50 were living with the spouse and a smattering of offspring. Today, that fraction is closer to 1/3. Whereas marriage used to be an institution widely adopted across all socioeconomic levels, today is much more prevalent among people who are wealthy and educated.
Yeah. Become an elitist institution,
That's
and
very
therefore
interesting,
all
isn't
the
it?
benefits have become elitist as well.
Yeah.
So I don't remember who said this. I think it might have been Louise Perry, but she was saying that one of the greatest bulwarks against poverty for women is marriage.
Yes.
So if you think about the poorest women past the age of 40, they're usually unmarried and they have children,
Yeah.
single mothers and all of that, or they're just unmarried.
Mm.
And I think if you're going to, that's probably the most feminist case you can possibly make for marriage. But again, it goes back to, can these women be married?
Yeah.
Do they have the ability to live with a man? Because most women, again, most of the modern generations, they don't like any kind of inconvenience. They don't like give and take. They don't like to negotiate. They don't like to be uncomfortable.
Yep.
They never think of what can I give to the person. They think, what can that person do for me? Like the fundamental skills of actually being able to live with someone, to run a home, to do all these things doesn't exist. They've been robbed of a choice.
Yeah, and all of the numbers are in. Like, if you want to build generational wealth, a married family that produces children who go on to get married, that's how wealth becomes accrued in a family. And so to essentially rob the lower classes of this, the poorer classes of this, condemns them to an eternity of poverty.
And I think couple that with social media era and this kind of glossy, this highlight reel era we're living in, where everyone thinks, oh, what is it, hot girl summer or vacation, or elevating women like Cardi B, who is married actually and has a kid, Cardi B and Megan Thee Stallion, and all of these,
and who doesn't let her kids listen to her own music.
Exactly. Really? I mean, like these people that are bastions of the culture that are destroying society. I mean, it doesn't get worse than that. Genuinely, like young people these days are scared of responsibility.
It's genuinely exploitative on people you are condemning to a terrible future.
Exactly.
And it's like, okay, well, that's awful.
Most people, I think, before the age of 35 don't actually have regular contact with children or
that's probably true.
Or young people. Most people don't have, like, I always say age is just a number, because what actually matures you is responsibility. And most people don't have that. They're allowed to be, stay children up until like they're basically 30s, and they call it adulting, which is
that's really interesting, because I had like 18 cousins in my family, so we all, and I was like the third oldest, so I always had younger cousins. So I was always it was normal to have like, a 8-year-old kid.
Yeah.
You got to look after, Rebecca or whatever when you go out, and it's like, yeah, okay, no problem, And
I was actually talking to my friend about this, because, I mean, she's Indian, but she grew up in Ghana, which is interesting. You see her and she has a stronger Ghanaian accent than I do.
Right.
But we were like, we don't have that many siblings. I only have one brother. She only has one brother.
Yeah.
But it's like imbued in us from a young age of that responsibility of taking care of your family, doing stuff for each other, your cousins and all of that. And it's completely lost on people. When I tell people, like, I don't know, I have to drive to Staffordshire because my mom needs this, they're like, what? Can't she do it herself? She can, but that's why I'm there.
I tell you, I saw this the other day. It was I think it was an MP or it was like an LBC host or something like that. It's like, oh my God, these people are, these people are expecting children to look after their parents. It's like, well, who the hell should be looking after them?
Honestly, I actually think everyone should work in a care home. Every young person should work in a care home, just because most people don't think about old age. I mean, I worked in a care home for a time, and it was such a harrowing experience. There was some people's flats that I went to clean, and it was like a bomb site. And I remember asking my manager, like, why is this person like, why have they been neglected? Why are they so depressed that the NHS has hospitalized them? Like, there was, I don't know how far I can say, but I know there were some residents that, they were obviously, they had early onset dementia. And so I was there just to give them their medication. And I'm like, have you changed your nappy? Like, and their family are nowhere to be seen.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is a future that awaits you if you think it's all glamorous, unless you're earning
Yeah.
so much money that you can afford stellar care. And most people are not.
Yeah.
You actually need to take your life seriously.
Yeah. This will be you one day.
Exactly. And I'm telling you, I mean, there was one lady who used to hug me. I only had an hour with her. That was kind of the designated time I had at the time. She used to hug me for 15 minutes while I was there. I would walk through the door and she would hug me for the 15 minutes while I'm supposed to be getting her ready and making her breakfast and all of that. And I'm like, that will be you.
Yeah. And this culture of just atomization, I can't stand
it. And like ignoring your I don't understand it.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, getting back to this, they complain that plenty of things about the process of getting married have remained stubbornly unchanged. Men still buy women expensive engagement rings, even when the couple already shares expenses. American women married to men continue to take their husbands' last names at a rate of 80 to 20. After a lull during the pandemic, the wedding industry is back in the black or white. An overwhelming number of proposals still made by men. So even with the layers of feminist indoctrination being proliferated through the culture, there are still some traditional aspects of being a man and a woman that simply can't get past. You can't get past.
I think the one thing that's hopeful in this case is these kinds of people will breed themselves out anyway.
Well, that is true. Yeah. But it just goes to show you that, like, men buying women expensive presents. Yeah. That's
literally
since the dawn of time.
Flowers. That's nice. I like,
Yeah. I bet women these days wouldn't know what to do with flowers if they were given.
But the thing is, the sad thing is, they don't know. They never think, what can I do for them? Like someone, I remember I did a show and someone was like, oh, what do you think like the typical man wants? And I was like, just someone who cares. Like if you wake up and make him a coffee and just like, oh, you didn't sleep well last night. I saw you like you genuinely care. I mean, do you know how rare it is for men to have that?
Yes.
I was like, men, like I said to one
someone
guy
who cares, well, that's a radical, really high.
There's a producer I work with who's quite young, I think 2021, and he was wearing a jumper. I was like, oh, that jumper is really nice. It really brings out the color of your eyes. And he's never forgotten it.
Well, yeah,
because people don't care. People don't like notice when he's got a haircut.
No.
Or like when he's put himself together. I just find it, just care. It's weird.
It doesn't sound like very much, does it? But it's kind of the opposite of the direction
we live in such
an
individualistic society.
But they complain that there's just no uptick of women proposing to men, and it's like, yeah, but why would you want there to be? And the only reason to want that to be the case is to eventually destroy the roles of man and woman, so there's just human. There's just the undifferentiated human matter, and it's terrible. I mean, it's absolutely terrible. So they go on to ask, it's like, well, what prevents a woman who wishes to marry her partner from proposing to him? Is it not mortification? Is it
shame?
Yeah, well, that's exactly what they go to. Is it mortification? The suggestion that the woman had to force the issue because she was not desirable enough to be chosen? Is it the unspoken prohibition on any act that whiffs of female aggression or ambition? Does it seem forward and loose?
Well, I mean, I think it depends on your conception of marriage as well.
Yeah.
I think I was saying, the whole getting down on one knee, that's not a big thing. It's when you meet my family. Because in my conception, marriage is actually not just between the two people. It's actually a lot bigger than that. It's bringing two families together. That for me is,
But that traditionally was what it always was.
Exactly. I mean, you get to the point where you're building something bigger than yourself, and you have, your community around you to attest that this is a good setup, right? And now it's just, oh, we're gonna date for 5+ years, and then if I get sick of waiting, I'll pop the question. First of all, that's embarrassing. And secondly, you don't take your life seriously.
Yes.
You're allowing someone to just waste your time.
And also, you're not thinking of yourself as something very important. It's more than not just taking yourself seriously. It's acting like you aren't like a node in this network of people who are all connected together and that rely on you to do something.
Most people, and this makes me very sad, especially when it comes to men, don't think of legacy. Like, I don't think I've actually heard the word legacy in mainstream conversation ever. But it's very important.
Oh, yeah.
What do you want your legacy to be? It's all, oh, I just want happiness. The point of life isn't happiness. I hate to break it to you.
Yeah, that's true.
It's just
totally
not.
True.
It's such a juvenile like conception. It's not happiness. It's about fulfillment. It's about being of use to your community. That is the meaning of life.
I view this as a part of an aspect of being childless as well.
Yeah.
Because I didn't ever think about my legacy until I had a couple of sons. And then I was like, oh, actually, and so every night I make my eldest son read half an hour of a history book and then do half an hour of piano practice.
Yeah.
Because the only thing that's going through my mind, because a lot of the time it's not fun to make him do it either. Like every single night he doesn't necessarily enjoy it. But all that's going through my mind is that, son, when you leave home, you're going to be able to at least read a book from start to finish and play the piano.
And when you start thinking of your legacy, you'll be grateful to have a father that thought of you in this way.
Exactly. And at some point, I know at some point in his future, be like, God, I'm glad my dad made me do that when he's playing a piano in front of a girl to impress her or something.
Yeah.
He will consciously think, I'm glad my dad made me do it.
And this is why I often make the point again, this is maybe controversial. I don't think a woman can raise a man the way a man should be raised.
I agree.
Because you're not a man.
Yeah.
You don't, like, I remember I did this show once where we were like, oh, how should women approach raising men? Get them raised by the kind of men you want them to be.
Yeah.
You cannot raise a man. I'm sorry, it's hurtful. You have a role to play in their lives. Like I tell my brother knows if he brings a girl to the house, I'm the first kind of vetting process. I'm like, oh yeah, is she well spoken? Does she have clean shoes? Does she speak? Like there are things, but I'm like, because I'm thinking of your legacy. You are not going to like bring a bum to this house and pretend like you don't matter or the kinds of people you associate with don't matter. But I'm not my dad. Like my dad has so much more to teach my brother that I would never understand.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, when you say this, people think it's an affront to single mothers and all of that.
I don't care if it is.
But it's a fact.
Yeah,
like,
it's true.
Who do we want the best for? Is it for the feelings of the mother or the children?
Exactly.
A society that's not rooted in looking out for children is a society doomed to failure.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it's so totally true that the mothers and fathers have different strengths and roles that they bring to the situation. Yeah. I mean, I dread to think how soft I would be if I didn't have my father around when I was growing up. So, I mean, and I can see it in my own children. My own children are very kind, and when they hurt themselves, I'm the one who's like, "Look, don't cry. You've got to toughen up."
Exactly.
And my wife would just indulge their crying, and it's totally normal. I don't blame her for doing it, but it's a genuinely hard line for me. I'm just like, no.
You need that balance.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the thing, because we've gotten so used to not wanting to hurt anyone's feelings. We can't say certain things, like this rise in Hollywood of these single women either hiring a surrogate because they're in their 40s or 50s and they just want a child. I'm like, it's not about what you want. When it comes to children, it's not about what you want. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And I feel bad for saying this because I even know people, I have colleagues and stuff who they got into their 40s and like, I don't need to wait for a man. I want a child. You are being selfish.
Yes.
I'm sorry. This child needs a mother and a father. You should have planned your life in a way. And maybe you were deprived of the choice because you weren't raised to even have the skills to look for that kind of person.
No, and that's totally true.
But I mean, I can't have blue eyes and blonde hair. I need to accept certain realities in life.
But the planned your life is, I think, the most important thing because people don't in the West.
Yeah.
We do not. We live forever in the moment and expect this one moment to just last forever. And then for us to be able to get whatever we want from where we are, wherever we are now. And if we don't, then it's
a bigger problem when it comes to men. Because if men were better and more deliberate about planning their lives, women will fall in line.
Oh,
I mean, I've met men that were like, oh, my ex was crazy. We dated for 3 years. I said, oh, okay. And like this person's 35. I was like, so what are you going to do next differently? I was like, oh, maybe take it a bit slower. Huh?
You're 35. What are
you dated this woman for 3 years. What are you going to do? Date someone for 10 years before you find out?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just like, you make poor decisions. You don't learn from that. You are a poor leader. You are not someone that you don't warrant the kind of woman that you want.
Yes.
That's the bottom line.
Well, that's another thing as well. Men are just deliberately trained not to take themselves seriously
because society has stopped taking men seriously. Society has stopped talking to men about their legacy because apparently that's patriarchal.
Good.
And I'm just
pro patriarchy.
You need to bring back the patriarchy.
Yeah.
Treat men like they matter, so they can take their lives seriously. And when that happens, women will fall in line. If you tell a woman, actually, I'm looking for a wife and kids, and you don't match up, the next year she's lost 50 kilos. She's bought some cookbooks.
She doesn't need a second airplane seat.
Thank the Lord. Assuming she's an actual woman and there's no bulge hidden somewhere.
Yeah. Assuming.
I mean, it's just people, because not everyone has the privilege of growing up where they're being told this. I completely accept that.
Yeah, it's true.
I think it's a culture-wide issue. I think, generations of women particularly have actually robbed younger women of the choice because they haven't raised them that way. Fine.
But also young men.
But you have to start somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. It just has to just be the harsh truth about it. Just like, sorry, no, actually, you've got to do some work.
And to be honest, I feel like it's sad that a lot of people, like, that void is being filled by the red pill bullshit that we're seeing online.
Well, the red pill bullshit is a total reaction and a cope in response to the fact that these are not worthy men. Like,
Oh, of course.
worthy men don't ever think about any of this stuff. Like the Pierce Brosnan thing with his wife going around. I mean, she's 60. Of course, she's putting on a little bit of weight. Give her a break. But like the fact that like you've got some 20-year-old kid going, look, your wife will get fat when she's 60. It's like, bro, by the time
you will be bald and fat yourself.
But even that, exactly, yeah, you will. But like by the time you get to Pierce Brosnan's age, that just won't matter to you. You know?
Because they don't understand what marriage is about. I mean, like that woman that you're mocking is a part of him.
Yeah, exactly. And she's not just a part of him. She's a part of loads of people. You know, she's got 2 sons with him. She's, you know, like a core part of his life. And he doesn't think like a 20-year-old man.
Exactly.
Like, he's not thinking like
that's
a horny
probably why he got married again.
Exactly. Yeah.
Exactly.
And it's just like, but that you can see that there's no thought to the life plan from the person who posted the critique of his wife when she was 60. Like, he didn't think one day I'll be an old man and one day I'll have the concerns of
and am I worthy? Yeah. Because in all of this, I'm like, you have to remember Pierce Brosnan actually convinced 2 beautiful women to give him 5 children.
Yeah, he did great.
He was worthy of that. Are you worthy?
Yeah.
And we're not talking about, you know, Nick Cannon and his 15 kids with these unworthy, because those women are not worthy. Seriously, they were not raised properly. They are breeding like a cockroach with an unworthy man, right? Yeah. Are you worthy of a quality woman?
That's exactly.
And most people don't ask themselves. Most people are not discerning in that way. It's not like, and I take a bigger issue when it comes, especially with women, maybe because I'm a woman, but there's nothing more off-putting than like a haughty woman with no self-awareness and all of that, because it's like,
it's true, yeah.
Because we think if someone raised their standards, then society would change. Of course, I think ultimately it lies with men. If men raise their standards, then things would change. Women have a role to play as well. If you're tolerating a man not treating you like a lady, you're setting a standard.
Well, one of the major problems is women giving easy access to sex. Frankly. And you knew where I was going with it.
Don't even get me started.
It's an entirely downward spiral, because you are right that if men just adopted some standards, women would change. But if women adopted some standards, men would change like that. I mean, men would just literally do whatever it took to get the wife.
It's a self-esteem issue as well, because I'm like, how low must your self-esteem be to not see your body as something sacred? Like, it's like,
we don't have a concept of the sacred.
So if 1,000 people in a room spat in their hands, would you go and shake every single one of their hands? God. That's like, what you're doing is worse, more intimate than that.
Disgusting.
Exactly, it's more intimate than that. You wouldn't do that, but somehow you think like having just like sex with a random person there's nothing wrong with it.
It's normal.
It's not cheapening yourself. Yeah. Like, sometimes you have sex with someone you don't even know their middle or last name. You've not met anyone in their lives. Are you not embarrassed?
And you're only going to meet them for one day. So there's something deeply wrong with
it. It's a crisis of self-esteem, amongst other things.
But it's just a genuine civilizational crisis as well. Like, it affects everything about our culture, and we don't understand how disgusting we look to the outside world as well.
Yeah, it's sad.
We genuinely don't.
If you enjoyed watching that segment from Podcast of the Lotus Eaters, which of course you did, why don't you check out this, which is Bo's latest epochs on Richard the Lionheart, and he's now got to the Crusades, which was probably a good thing, wasn't it? Anyway, you can find out more on lotuseaters.com, where you can follow us for free, and you could also give us some money if you wanted to.